Okay, it's 6:35. Welcome everyone. My name is Katie Ellman, and I am chair of the Queens Community Board 1 Housing Committee. My vice chair is Vanessa Jones Hall, and this is our November 2024 Housing Committee meeting. First things first, I will do a roll call of our committee. If you are present, please either I can see you, but if you can, either to give a thumbs up or say present. Christian Batres is not present. Christopher Hanaway is also not present today. They emailed in advance saying they're not here. Corinne Wood Haynes, I saw you earlier. Laga Madella, not yet here. Doreen Mohammed. Maricela Santos. Dominic Stiller. And Vanessa Jones Hall. Okay, thank you for that. So it's my pleasure to convene the meeting today. And for those of you that have been here before the meeting started, you probably heard a little bit about the agenda item that we're dealing with today. So our guests today are from the Department of Homeless Services and Bowery Residence Committee. And they're a construction partner. And please correct my pronunciation. Lettieri? Is it Lettieri?
Yeah, that's the original. Yes. We here, but you got it spot on.
Okay. And this is the conversation tonight and the presentation is about the construction of a family shelter on 40th Avenue, 3978 11th Street at 40th Avenue. That was planned and in the works pre-pandemic, estimate about 5.5 to 6 years ago. That came before the board then. And today it is set to break ground in January. And at one more moment, I see you, Clint Okayama. I'm sorry I didn't put you on the roll call, but welcome and I'm glad you're here. So I wanted to turn the meeting over to DHS and BRC. If the members of that team could briefly introduce yourselves, Kyle, Matt, Jamar, who else is here? If you could just briefly introduce yourselves and your role, and then feel free to get started.
Sure thing. I'll get started. My name is Jamar Hooks. Can you hear me? Jamar Hooks. I am Deputy Commissioner for Intergovernmental and Legislative Affairs at the Department of Social Services, which includes the Department of Homeless Services and the Human Resources Administration. I'll pass to Sam Clark.
Hi, Sam Clark, Board Director for Queens and Staten Island DSS Intergovernmental Affairs. I'll pass now to Kyle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle Jeremiah, BRC's Director of External Affairs, and I will pass it to Matt.
Hi, Matt Gross, Lettieri Construction, based in East Harlem. Looking forward to answering any questions.
I think that's it for us.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Do you have a formal presentation or how did you want to present to the committee or, because obviously there will be questions. So
yes,
how would you like to start?
We have a formal presentation, which Kyle is going to lead, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Perfect. And Kyle, you're able to present. Do you have permission?
I can share my screen, yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
So before we get started, Florence, thank you for providing that wonderful context before the meeting officially started. I just want to take just a few seconds just to give you guys a brief history. So you have an understanding as to when and how we came before the board previously with this project. So in terms of initial exploration, VRC's president and CEO, Muzzy Rosenblatt, collaborated with the former council member, James Van Bramer, to explore the idea of building a family shelter in Long Island City. Both men met with the community board at the time to present the proposal, gather feedback, and secure community buy-in. And then COVID happened, and engagement efforts were significantly impacted by the pandemic, and that caused significant delays and disruptions to the process. We met with Senator Gianaris when this project fell in his district before redistricting. And they had a productive meeting, and that contributed to the plan. Since the district line redraws, engagement efforts have now shifted to involve Senator Gonzalez, ensuring continued partnership and community involvement. And finally, despite the pandemic and former and present legislators no longer being involved in the district, we all remain committed to informing and engaging the community in partnership with the senator, the council member, the community board, the Queensbridge Houses Tenant Association, and other stakeholders. So with that, I am going to share my screen. Are you all able to see?
Yes. A little small.
How do I?
I just want to put on the record that the council member's office was not informed of this at all.
Sorry, who's speaking?
I believe, was that Julie Wong speaking?
Was Julie Warren. And I also wanted to
Right.
go on a record, contrary to what the statement that was just made by Kyle, the Queensbridge Resident Association leader, who is myself, has not been contacted until just recently. I had a conversation last week, so there has not been any community engagement since Jimmy Van Bramer put this into play prior to the pandemic.
Yes, and also there was a written formal letter sent by my office with the Queensbridge Tenants Association inquiring if this site would become a shelter, and we got no response from DHS. So we were just notified on Friday. So there was no engagement, and we read every single email that comes to our office.
No
So we're
engagement. I
pretty-
spoke to Kyle because I called him.
It's unacceptable.
Okay, so just to clarify, as I said,
Go ahead.
in terms of the ongoing engagement efforts, we remain committed to establishing communications with the stakeholders that I mentioned. Given my recent appointment to this role, I can't really speak to what engagement has and has not been made, but we are firmly committed to continuing to engage with you all as this process moves forward.
So Kyle, not to interrupt, my apologies for interrupting, but since you just made that statement, then your previous statement is not accurate. You can't speak to what you don't know. You was not here for that. So you implied that there has been ongoing engagement. There has not been. So I would remove that portion from your
Well,
presentation.
there
You
has been
understand what I'm
documented.
saying?
I think
I
I was
understand what
saying
you're
that the engagement efforts were stymied by the pandemic, but prior to that, Councilmember Van Bramer, former Councilmember Van Bramer, and previous DHS staff and previous BRC staff were involved in letting the community know about the potential shelter.
So again, to be clear, that was prior to the pandemic. Those administrations are not in place anymore. So what you're speaking about is way past. Some people are not even here anymore on Earth. So I think it's fair to say, because it gives the implication that there has been engagement and there has not. And I'm pretty sure that's why Julie Wan let the record show that there has not been. And
Also
Then-
want to state that there was nothing in writing from the council member or the previous Tenants Association president about this project. And it's also outdated information because prior to COVID, we didn't have 38 shelters in the district. Now we have 38 shelters, in which 28 are migrant shelters.
absolutely.
So we recognize the need, we recognize the importance for community engagement, and that's why we're here today, because we want to get to a point where we're able to have an open channel of communication. We don't want to move forward with a project without the community board being aware of all the steps being taken. So in addition to this meeting, we are fully committed to engaging with you all every step of the way as we continue to move forward with this initiative. So
We have 38 shelters in this district. There are districts in this city who have 0. If we truly believe in equity, we would not be piling on more shelters next to the NYCHAs where there's already no resources without giving them any resources, which is we have $0 from any level of government given to the Queensbridge houses or the nonprofits that service them, despite the 38 shelters that have been concentrated and opened here. So this is not the area.
Councilmember Juan,
Another shelter.
Councilmember Juan, I think everyone here agrees with that, the lack of resources. This project, I mean, we're here to listen to a presentation, and I think we need to move forward with listening to the presentation, and then we need to allow space for additional comments and additional questions. And then the board can also, in addition to what you do in your district, and as you gracefully and successfully represent the community, you will do the work as well. But we need to allow this presentation to move forward so then we can be educated. I know I don't remember all of this from almost 6 years ago, so I need to be educated about it myself so I can have a more educated opinion about it to then discuss with the committee and the full board about how we think this should proceed in tandem with you and others in the community. But I would like us to be able to proceed with the presentation and then allow a more robust conversation that everyone can participate in after the presentation. So if you can proceed with the presentation.
Sure.
And then
so-
everyone, I would like everyone to feel comfortable. If you're not comfortable speaking, you can write questions and comments in the chat, and we'll make sure that they're recorded on record.
Sure. So in terms of the location, the project will be located across from the Queensbridge houses at 3878 11th Street. That's at 40th Avenue in Long Island City. And the project will provide 150 transitional shelter units for families experiencing homelessness. In terms of the specifics of the program, we will be serving, as I mentioned before, families experiencing homelessness. The building itself would be 6 stories high. We will have 150 shelter units. In terms of amenities, we'll have a 24-hour attended lobby, indoor-outdoor recreation space, laundry on every floor, energy-efficient appliances and systems. In terms of staffing, the facility will have dozens of full-time staff members, including security personnel, and we will develop a local outreach plan to connect with area residents on opportunities to apply for positions.
Oh, you're still on slide 1, FYI.
Do you see it moving? Because it's moving on my end.
No, it's not moving.
Oh,
And maybe if you put it in presentation mode, then we can see the full screen of your presentation.
I thought that's what I did. I apologize, everyone. Do you guys see it moving now?
No.
No,
Oh,
I'm at a loss.
you're no longer sharing your screen.
Go to utilize the share screen.
How about now?
Yes.
Better.
Okay, great. So, what services will be provided at the transitional housing facility? The facility will offer various on-site social services for families, including childcare for residents, case managers for clients, licensed mental health staff for clients who need it, and the facility will also have a family visiting area and stroller parking. Here are a few renderings of what this space would look like. Are you all able to see that?
Yes.
Here's a second image. So in terms of safety and security, because I know that's a concern for many residents, we will have 24/7 on-site security with trained staff. More than 100 security cameras will be installed throughout the building and around the exterior. Perimeter patrols will be conducted by BRC staff. We usually have staff can carry out these perimeter controls twice per hour. There will be an open line for the community to provide feedback and address any concerns. A 24-hour phone line with messaging service. At night, of course, you'd get a machine and we would be able to check those messages in the morning. In terms of the construction and timeline, Latier Construction anticipates creating 300 construction jobs. Matt can speak more to that piece. They'll have positions for 15 to 25 entry-level local hires and will offer OSHA 30 SST training to neighborhood residents. The development timeline includes demolition of the existing structures. That should be spring 2025, and construction beginning also early in 2025. We expect this facility to open in late 27 or early 28. So in terms of community engagement, we'll engage with the various community stakeholders. It's part of what we're trying to do right now to update them on the timeline and all other relevant details associated with the project, as well as when the program formally opens. BRC will also engage community organizations who are equipped to bring services to our clients. Example, tutoring services for the children of clients, financial literacy services for the parents, etc. And that brings us to the end of this very brief presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions on any of the points raised here.
Can I just jump in and just add just to the council member's comment on the lack of resources? I think one thing that we realized, there's a bodega that's been operating for about 25 years. And that bodega is not being pushed out and closed. They're actually going to be relocating a block over, and they will be reopening. So, and I don't even know there's going to be any disruption of services there. So just that was one thing as we've been starting asbestos abatement and getting involved in the building, was to make sure that we didn't remove any of those, because there is just a lack of eating establishments, et cetera. And so that will not be gone. That bodega, Sadiq, will be located 1 block south, or 1 block west, excuse me.
Thank you for that, Matt. And if I could just add one thing to the council members' point about oversaturation of the community. We definitely hear you and we understand your concern. So this particular shelter is a purpose-built shelter, meaning it's being built from the ground up for the purposes of supplying shelter. It's not a hotel. It's not an emergency shelter. So we anticipate that it will absorb at least some of the hotel capacity in the district. So, I mean, I hear your concern,
No,
but
it's not going to absorb capacity. It's only going to just add on to the capacity that we currently have. There's no shortage of homeless people in the city. It's not okay that there are districts who have 0 shelters. If you're going to concentrate all the shelters in this district, you need to at least give them resources. Tomorrow, I'm about to be on TV again about your mistreatment as a DHS shelter to the people that live in your shelter. It's not okay. You're mistreating people.
It's not okay. And it behooves me that, excuse me, this is Ms. Haynes. It behooves me that you, Matt, would appear to be considering the community by relocating a bodega, but you're not considering the community by not placing another shelter where we have over 27 within a mile radius from this very same community. It's unacceptable. It's not okay. There's nothing that you can tell me or sell me. I don't know what Jimmy Van Bramen was thinking about prior to the pandemic, because we already had some family shelters in the community. It's inequitable. It's not fair. There are many districts that have nothing. Take it and put it somewhere else. If you want to put something here as a developer, put a housing complex that would afford people from maybe even this community to transition into another development. The shelter is not the way. I promise you, I'm gonna march until I don't have feet. It's inequitable. It's not fair. Nothing about this makes sense to me. I was born and raised here. It's overwhelming what we live with. Nobody else lives here. I don't think nobody on this call lives here but me. Nobody visits here other than Julie Wan. I must say, she does visit the community. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. We are inundated. There are no services, and I don't want no services. I don't want it here. Take it and put it somewhere else. Put it on Madison at 86. How about there? Very up and coming community.
Who owns the land?
I'm sure they know who owns the land.
I'm directing that to, yeah, who owns the property?
Matt, I don't know if you could correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if we own the land.
Yeah, it's with us, you know, an entity created to bridge the pre-development into Bowery Residence Committee. But Bowery Residence Committee will be the owner and operator of the land and the shelter.
I don't understand. This is public land from the state or the city?
No, it's privately owned.
By whom again? I'm so sorry.
So it's being transitioned through, it was previously with a family that had a metal stamping factory that was unable to continue operations. And so the operations winded down, and it's being transitioned through a financing facility in advance of transferring it to Bowery Residence Committee.
Barry,
So it's currently in Bowery Residence Committee, which is the acronym BRC. So right now, it still belongs to that family. It hasn't fully been signed over to BRC. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
but is that a land trust? I'm sorry, Katie. Could you?
Go ahead.
I'm asking BRC is what? Is that can somebody answer that question?
Oh, you're asking the type of organization we are?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Ray,
we're
it's the nonprofit that they're trying to
Right.
transfer the land to.
the nonprofit. We're a housing and social services organization. So we build and operate shelters, safe havens, affordable, supportive housing, and what have you.
Thank you.
So I have a question, while it's fresh in my mind, and then I would like others to ask questions if they have them. Can this be transitioned to supportive housing instead of, or some kind of adaptable housing for our other communities, including people from within our own, instead of the current use that you're proposing that was proposed 6 years ago?
The plan at this point is to move forward with shelter.
But also, I think because of zoning regulations, we aren't allowed to build housing there.
That's not true. You could redo the whole thing again if you want to build supportive housing. But otherwise, a shelter is not going to be supported here, as you heard from the Tenants Association President, Corinne Hayes.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I stand corrected. But based on the information I've received, because of the zoning regulations, we aren't able to build housing there.
Okay. I think it's clear where many of us stand on this. I would like to allow additional questions from this committee members, the other board members that I see on the pool. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to raise your hand, start talking, or write them
I do,
in the
Katie.
chat.
Hi,
Okay, go
Katie. I
ahead.
have, it's Quinella. I'm sorry, I'm driving and I'm listening to this. I agree that it's just crazy to build a homeless shelter in this type of an area. I mean, I still can't understand why you can't why can't affordable housing get built in this area and you transition people from the projects into these nice buildings.
Absolutely.
I mean, and Corinne, for you, I lived in that area at one time. Just to let you know, I do know that area. I lived there. And I transitioned into an Astoria apartment, affordable housing, and it's great. And I lived in that area for like 15 years. So
Thank
why
you.
can't they just do the same thing? Put some, you know, create some affordable housing so these people can transition. You have a lot of city employees living in the housing projects that can't afford to get out of there. But yeah, you're going to build these great apartments for these homeless people. It makes no sense to me. And then it's too many in the area. You got hotels. It's going to be too many people in that particular area. It's such a small space because they're putting up buildings. You're putting up apartment buildings. You're putting up hotels. You're putting restaurants. It's just weird. The whole thing is weird to me. And I think the board should just, you know, is this something that we have to vote on? Because I can tell you now, I'm not voting. I'm voting against it.
No, from what I
Unfortunately,
understood, they
no.
voted on it already, but I am, I said, thank you, Quinella, for that. And thank you for enlightening me that you lived here before.
Yes.
As a representative for the residents here, it's just the climate that is strategically being designed for this area is disheartening, is disrespectful, it's unacceptable, and it's inequitable. Completely inequitable.
So we hear you about the concern about the affordable and need for affordable and supportive housing. We'll take that back to our colleagues at City Hall, who are responsible for those type of decisions. We're here to talk about this shelter, and unfortunately, no one that is here with representing the city or BRC is able to talk about affordable housing.
Okay.
That's not true. I'm on
Okay.
as a city representative, and you can go through a ULURP if you want to build supportive housing for homeless people and for NYCHA residents. But as you heard from the entire community, this is unacceptable. You can't continue to pile on all of these hotels, shelters, and homeless shelters into one area. Build them in a wealthy white neighborhood. Stop putting them in the poorest Black neighborhoods of my district. This is enough. They deserve better.
We deserve better.
As I said,
So-
council member, this is a purpose-built shelter. And I mean, you don't agree with this, but we anticipate that it will absorb some of the hotel capacity and in doing so, reduce the overall shelter footprint and the census in your district.
Share with you something, sir, Mr. Hooks. Before the pandemic, when they started converting the hotels into shelters, I was here. You were not. So one day, on 13th Street, they converted 9 units, only 9 units. How I know that? Because my daughter was working for an organization, nonprofit organization, community services, something, as a residential aide, right? They took her from another hotel and put it there. It was 9 units. The very next day, it was 90 units. In 24 hours, it was 90 units. She was the only residential aide working there. So they under-facilitated. It still operates now as a women's shelter. 85% of the women there are dealing with mental health issues. It's still under-facilitated. I need the evidence base to show me how successful DSS runs these facilities. I lived it. I witnessed it with my own eyes. I promise you. I work for Queens Public Library, so I've gone there over the years to provide services. Case management, non-existent. Underqualified, not professional. There's nothing nobody could tell me about this community and the shelters and the services provided in these shelters that are adequate. Do undercover boss in these shelters as a deputy director, go by there unannounced, and you go and witness the services that are being provided for
We
these.
do that routinely.
It's
routinely
the services are unacceptable. I'm sorry. I promise you.
routinely conduct unannounced site visits.
Yeah,
just-
but
just so you
then
know.
if you're satisfied with it, then your level of professionalism, and not you personally, I mean the organizations. It's subpar. And these are the people that are being in our community, that are coming into our community. They're underserviced. They will tell you themselves, but it's evident based on how they're coming into the community. We embrace them in the community. We have to, but they're being underserviced.
If I may, very quickly.
Okay, go ahead. And then I want to move on because Shahanaz had her hand raised.
Yeah, just on 2 quick points, I was able to confirm that zoning does not allow for permanent housing there, only temporary. And also, BRC will be operating the family shelter. Right now, we run 2 adult family shelters. In addition, we have, permanent housing programs with families with children in them. And there are some people who exited the shelter system. So we understand the family dynamics. And we have been very successful in helping people maintain housing. We have a close relationship with the families, working with the families, keeping the kids in school, etc. So we understand the needs and the struggles of the families. So, recognizing that they're complex, but and adults have needs themselves, but we also run employment shelters. We've lost a lot of folks because they had children and had to enter the family system. But all that to say, we understand the needs of the kids with special requirements and those who don't. And this particular family shelter is just a complement to our other work, and we're happy to share the stats and the success stories from our other programs across the Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. And we're very proud of the work that we do. I can assure you, Ms. Haynes, that we're not going to run a shelter where these families, these parents with kids fall by the wayside.
I mean, if you understand, any organization coming here to present this plan would be receiving the same information.
Understood, yes.
And it's obviously things are very clear that life is different from before the pandemic. There are countless New Yorkers that need homes, and this community has absorbed and is unduly burdened with that. It's not just, it's not fair. And I think what you're hearing is enough is enough. I would like Shahanaz to be able to ask her question, if she still remembers it.
I hope so. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Council City Julwan and Corinne. Yeah, it's not against the organization, but I live here and I work here. In the pandemic, we understand we need this shelter because a lot of people need to live there. But now we don't have the pandemic anymore. I don't understand why you need more shelter in our district. We have enough. And as people said, enough is enough. Walk everywhere. And also it's not safe. It's not safe in the area anymore like before. If Ravenswood, Queensbridge, but Queensbridge has the most of all these hotels which transfer to shelters. And why we don't have houses? All of us here, we cannot afford to pay the rent anymore. I believe if you want, we can use the land for houses. If you say this rezoning, a lot of today's land is rezoning. I don't understand why you don't do rezoning. If we do all In this area, we have every single day a new rezoning. I live in the area and work here. I believe is no more shelter needed here. Another district maybe need shelters, but for our area, we don't need any more shelters. We're not against shelters. I know a lot of people need the shelters, but please, like reallocate it. Move some from here, put it in another area. You have a lot of district has no shelters. Reallocate it, not put all the people in our area. Make also the economy bad. Look for economy, look for the safety, look for all of this. Besides, you don't have enough security in the area now because you put every single here, but you don't have the NYPD, all of them here. You don't have the fire department, all of them here. You build more. You just put shelter, but no more service. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahanaz. There's a question in the chat for Matt Gross. Are the plans approved by the Department of Buildings for this project?
Demolition plans are currently processing, but we don't have the new construction plans approved by DOB as of today.
Councilmember Juan, did you have another question? Go ahead.
I just want to say, Katie, thank you. You're such a good moderator. Thank you for bringing us through this because it's just been heartbreaking. We can go through a ULURP, go through a rezoning. Community Board 1 is extremely well apt at this. We can go through a rezoning and build housing there, affordable housing, so that we can transition NYCHA residents and currently homeless residents who are still in shelters because they have nowhere to live. That's what we need to do if we're going to do anything here. Otherwise, it is unacceptable. It needs to go to a wealthy neighborhood, not just the poorest neighborhoods of our city, concentrating them all here. You will not have my support. I will be fighting this tooth and nail along with the TA president and the Queensbridge residents. It's not okay. I'm going to be calling DOB. I'm going to call the mayor. I'm going to call everyone and tell them this is not okay. We've asked and pleaded and begged. Like Shahana said, we have been welcoming of all these shelters, yet they have given us $0 on resources to help people. It's not okay. We were on TV because residents got into a fight with other residents who are in shelter over the food pantry line because our food pantry lines have become so long and there's not enough food for people. That is incredibly heartbreaking. We cannot continue to pile on into this community without any resources. And there are too many people bragging that they have 0 shelters in their district. We have enough. So I only hopped on to tell everyone that you have my support because I've heard from multiple Queensbridge residents now that this is not okay. And we're going to continue to make sure that we get resources for the people who are there. And also with the mayor's current 30-60 day rule, these families, how are they going to get to stay more than 30-60 days?
This is a purpose-built shelter, meaning it's going to be for everyday New Yorker, not a migrant facility.
That's what they told us, but even the regular New Yorkers who've been in migrant shelters, vice versa, that has been mixed up now, they all get evicted the same way.
If someone from the developer provider can say what is the duration that potential residents would have in this shelter?
We're done. It's about 9 months.
So 9 to 12 months in shelter, and then when they first get to shelter, they are assessed, and we work with them to develop an independent living plan. But as you know, as folks on this call have pointed out, housing is very, very expensive in New York City. And so from day one, we're working on an independent living plan, but it normally takes about 9 to 12 months to move folks out with the voucher.
I think this is a great idea. Sorry, Katie. I think it's a great concept for shelter. It just needs to be somewhere else. I'm not opposed to your plan, your purpose-driven, evidence-based. It just needs to be somewhere else. Where do you live at, sir? Any one of you? it across the street from where you live at.
Oh, there are plenty of shelters across the street from where I live at. I live in Crown Heights in Brooklyn.
Okay, okay. Yeah, well, put it over there. It's just not here. Not here. It's literally never stops. The challenges and issues that are right across the street from us never, ever, ever stops since before the pandemic, and it has not disseminated any. I promise you, I wouldn't tell you no lie. My phone rings all the time. I wish I would have got a separate phone for what I'm doing, the community work. I didn't. It's okay because I'm here for my residents, but it rings all the time. You think your phone rings, Florence, Julie, all the time, and then I call Julie or Florence. But you know, like I said, I think it's a great. I like the concept, just somewhere else.
And I just want to say, please don't feel like we're insensitive to your concerns. Everything that you're saying is valid. Like, we hear your frustrations. I think it's no secret that the area is saturated with shelters. I just want to make clear that, you know, we have a clear plan for operating this family shelter as efficiently as possible, with the utmost transparency, so that you guys are aware of everything that's going on, and that you have direct access to BRC moving forward if there are any concerns in the community. You know, if any of you want to take a tour of any of our other shelters to see how efficiently it's run, you know, oftentimes, you know, we have concerns about, you know, having shelters in various districts, and then when they're up and running, you don't even know that it's a shelter. So we're happy to give you a tour of our other facilities, but if you could just let me know what you would need from us to feel even a bit more comfortable, I'm happy to have those conversations.
You can shut down 5 shelters in the Queensbridge area, and then we could come back to building your shelter. If you permanently close it down before you start construction, then we will open this shelter. So that way there's equity in the city of where these other shelters will be redistributed to. Or otherwise, you can give us $200 million so that our nonprofits and our tenants association have resources, and our schools and our PD is right-sized to accommodate the increase in population. All of those things are the options that we have laid out for the administration multiple times now, because it is clear that the Queensbridge residents and the Ravenswood residents have faced the brunt of the migrant crisis and the pandemic and just the housing crisis, and it's not okay. Do you see wealthy white neighborhoods getting concentrations of shelters in our city? No. Especially those with single homeowners? No. But in the NYCHAs of where the poorest Black and brown people live, we can't put enough, because the government knows that no one is going to organize and fight back. But this community board cares a lot about their NYCHA residents, and they will fight back. It's not about you and your organization at all. We respect what you're doing. This is a reaction to what the city has done, which is a disservice to our NYCHA residents in this district for the last 10 years of this investment from our NYCHAs. Do you know how many tickets we currently have for the NYCHA residents who can't even live with a working window, with working stoves, without roaches and rodents? They don't have fair housing now. They're on the brink of becoming homeless themselves. Take care of our people, then we can take care of others too. But you can't continue to pile on for them when they have no resources for themselves. It's not okay. We've been begging for more resources.
I hear you, Councilmember. And like I said, no one on this call is in a position to promise that we can close 5 shelters or give the community $200 million. But we will certainly take that back. And we'll take that back for City Hall to consider. But the other thing I should reiterate is that, and Kyle said this in the beginning, is that this project was came as a result of Councilmember Van Bramer, your predecessor, bringing this making this a priority for the community. And so every year, the commissioner sends out a letter requesting that council members, community boards, and others provide shelter location or potential locations for shelters to be developed. And I believe this was one of the locations that was suggested. So
Do you have this in writing? Do you have this in writing? Because I've never heard of this, and I'm not Jimmy Van Bramer. And
Right.
also he has passed on. And this was 6 or however many years ago, before the pandemic, before we had 38 total shelters.
How many
38
government
total
sites?
shelters.
Okay, I think this conversation is gonna continue. And there's gonna be a lot of mobilization after this meeting. Against this, as you're hearing. I would like to allow Clint or any other board members an opportunity to give their opinion or ask questions if they have any.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, I'll weigh in. I err on the side of Councilmember Wan and Ms. Haynes. And I'm just trying to figure out who we can talk to and what arguments we could make to perhaps create permanent housing. You know, as was evidenced in the Housing First pilot in New York City, you know, when you give people permanent housing, it reduces the city's costs and is economically better for everybody. It sounds like, thank you all for your presentation, but it sounds like Commissioner Park is the person who's deciding this, or is it higher up? Who do we talk to? Who's pulling the levers to decide this issue, and how do we engage with them?
We can talk to, it's a great idea. We can talk to the Department of City Planning. We can talk to we will write a letter to the Department of City Planning. The commissioner is Dan Garodnik, and we will also write a letter to the commissioner, Molly Park, DHS. And we'll also write a letter to the mayor. We'll just CC everybody and say that we would prefer permanent affordable housing here instead of adding a 39th shelter to the roster for this district without $0 resources. And we'll get all of the levels. We'll get the Congress member to sign on, the state senator to sign on, the assembly member to sign on. We'll have the Tenants Association president sign off, and we will make sure that a public notice, and we'll get the press. We'll do everything that we need to make sure that this is heard publicly. But that's a great idea. Thank you so much, everybody.
Good plan.
And Jeremiah, or Kyle, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm outside now and I apologize. I just left my child's soccer practice, so I'm sorry about the sound. But does BRC do supportive permanent housing, or is it transitional
Yes.
and homeless?
We also do permanent supportive housing, correct?
So I'm wondering if the will is there, because it sounds like it from the community and that the will is there for something like that, as opposed to a homeless shelter. If all of the elements that have already come into play can just be reshifted and redirected to affordable permanent housing instead of an additional homeless shelter. So I guess that's TBD. Are there any other questions from anyone that is attending this meeting? On the board, off the board?
I just want to quickly respond to that. I mean, if
He does?
we absolutely want to build as many affordable housing units as we can. Again, regulations prevent us from doing so at this particular area. And I will add that, I don't know if it's Clint who just asked the question about what can be done. I mean, I'm speaking, I think I'm going off on a tangent here, but there are efforts ongoing to address these restrictive zoning regulations, such as, City of Yes, and other initiatives to encourage the construction of affordable housing in New York City. Not saying that this is an option right now, but generally speaking. And yeah, again, I just want to quickly point to a women's shelter that we opened 2 weeks ago in Far Rockaway. That was also met with a bit of resistance, but through constant communication, and engagement, tours, we reached to some consensus where the council member felt satisfied that we were running an operation that wouldn't be a hindrance to residents living in the area. In addition to bringing myriad benefits to her district, including jobs and business. So I hope that eventually we can get to that space as well, where we can work to prove to you all that we are going to operate and efficiently manage this family shelter, where it's not going to be a situation where you all feel unsafe or burdened in any way.
With all due respect, I think you are mishearing what we're asking for. It's for affordable housing, and we can go through a ULURP and build affordable housing here. We can go through the rezoning process. And it's not a matter of your organization not being trustworthy to do the right thing and treat your members there or your residents, but it's the fact that we have 38 shelters in the district, and that's more than enough for one district when there are other white wealthy districts who have 0.
Thank you, both of you, for that. Shahnaz?
No, I don't have question. Only I see 2 questions in the chat. If you want to read it, please.
Which question? Feel free to reach out to me. Can you change the plan and redesign for the shelter? And then I think the other questions were asked. Do you have something specific that I'm missing, Shahnaz? Please read it if so.
No, I see someone was asking, she was asking about the Department of High question for Matt Gross. Do you have approved plan from
Oh yeah, so sorry. He did answer that. So the demolition plans have been approved, and Matt, please correct me if I'm misstating what you said. But the construction plans have not been approved yet. So the demolition is approved. The construction has not been. Is that correct?
That's correct. Partial demo permits are approved and the finals are processing.
So, Council Member One, would it be at all appropriate for me to reach out to your office in the coming days so that we could have a separate conversation to talk more about this? And Ms. Haynes, I'd love to be able to speak with you as well.
Only if it's
and I'm
going to be
also
about
happy to have
rezoning.
follow-up conversations with the community board. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Only if this is going to be a conversation about a rezoning for permanent supportive housing. Otherwise, I will not be like the Far Rockaway council member who eventually said this is fine, because we have 38 shelters. We have more than enough shelters. We need housing.
Same here. I don't want to waste your time, and I don't have time to waste. I sit on 7 different committees. So, rightfully so. But unless we having that conversation, I don't see a need for a conversation. I'm not opposed to your organization, the work that your organization does, nor the Department of Homeless Services. Is just that it can't be here. We need permanent housing if we're going to have anything. And we have to be, I am willing to stand up and to fight for what the community absolutely needs and does not. And I thank my community board for allowing us to have this platform. Katie, you did an amazing job. Thank you for coordinating this in a most professional manner and controlling the platform. Thank you for all who spoke on behalf of and understand and do really understand what would serve our community better and this district better. That's it. I don't have anything else to talk about until the conversation changes to that.
Thank
Thank
you. I have, there's a couple of questions in the chat from Fanny. And I think this was touched upon a little bit earlier, but if Matt can address it, how can plans be approved when you don't have the as of right zoning? And then the current zoning designation, she's saying is M3-1, not for residential. Can someone on the either Jamar or Matt speak to that? And I apologize for the noise where I am.
Yeah, the zoning as of right allows for the manufacturing and transitional housing. It's correct. It's not for residential. So the as of right is either manufacturing, industrial, or transitional. That's the current.
What is as of
zoning.
right? That means you have the right to do whatever you want? What is as of right? What is that zoning? You have the right to do whatever
Right.
you want?
It's a technical land use term for the zoning that as of right means what can be built there without having to go and have a ULURP action.
And the ULURP is the land use review process. So I'm also on the land use committee, and organizations come before the land use committee to say, hey, this is the current zoning. We want to get a variance on it. And this is what we want to do with the land. And this is what the zoning will change to allow us to go from a manufacturing district to residential. Did that
And
answer
the
your
code-
question?
I'm not sure if that answered my question, Katie. Is that what as of right stands for?
As of right just means what it's currently zoned for, and this is what's allowed there based on the current zoning.
Ms.
So-
Corinne, as of right is just a legal term that developers use to say by the current land, like for the legislative text for that land, the use of that land, if it is deemed manufacturing, so like M1, that means that it could only be used for that purpose. If it's deemed R9, it's only for residential of a certain height. Currently, it is manufacturing. But what we've seen is the law has been written in IBZs, which is the industrial business zones, like the ones that you see currently next to the NYCHAs, where it historically was industrial use for auto body shops, for manufacturing factories, etc., that have now been abandoned, and they've been sitting there, and the city took advantage of that and built hotels as of right and converted them to shelters. And now this current underutilized manufacturing zone, they're proposing that we make it into a shelter so that they could use that instead. But what we can do is go through a zoning change and say we prefer this to be residential so that we can build new housing for our NYCHA residents and low-income residents and put them in new nice apartments instead of having them in dilapidated ones like we're currently dealing with all of the casework that you work on. Does that help?
Help explain to me, and then Katie, yes, that did help explain to me what that is. I got a better understanding what as of right is, because that is a little it made it feel like you could just do what you want. And it's pretty much it is the legal term for that. I got it. Thank you.
Historically, at least in our district in the past, and Florence can add to this if she wants to, but that's why we have so many of the storage facilities, because they could, if they couldn't get a zoning variance, they would be able to build another storage facility. So it's obviously very different, but the zoning piece is the big deal. And if you're on the community board, and if you're not, if you're able to attend one of the land use committee meetings, it's incredibly helpful to understand what's coming before, what will come before the city council, and what also is in the works with the Department of City Planning. There are a lot of projects, and this is just one of them, one of many. I'm being mindful of the time, it's 7:34. And if anyone has additional thoughts or questions, I would like them to be able to say so now. I think we all agree that there's a tremendous amount of housing insecurity in our city and in our neighborhoods. And nobody disagrees with the need for that and for organizations like PRC to be able to provide services to those that need it. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that need it. But as you've heard a lot, there's no desire from the community and our elected leader to see another shelter in this community, especially since it's been unduly burdened with additional non-permanent residents in shelters and the lack of supportive services that go along with that, and with schools and everything else that comes along with what you need to live a full and happy life as a family. So I'm going to ask Florence a question if she's there.
Yes, Madam Chair.
So I know that this was an information sharing meeting.
Session.
We're not voting. We're not doing any of that.
Yes.
My question has to do with how next week when we present our committee notes to the full board, and I guess it can be discussed then, but I'm just wondering how then as a community board, we could potentially present a letter or something to the city in support of an alternative use of this space. Obviously this is very new. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I don't want to speak out of line. As a chairman of the committee, you have the right on behalf of your committee to write a letter. As you know, we are not allowed to vote at these meetings, but what you can do is bring the topic to the full board meeting, do your presentation at the full board meeting, request from the full board to write a letter on behalf of the committee because of all the sentiments felt here. You can use this videotape to draft your letter, and you can write a letter of concern. So you have the right, of course, you have the right to write a letter to DHS, the mayor's office, the elected officials, stating the concerns of the TA president and the residents of our community. Julie Wan mentioned a council member, Julie Wan, honorable council member Julie Wan, mentioned 38 or 39. Our side of Astoria, Community Board 1, we have 34 of those 38 shelters. Those other shelters that honorable council member Julie Wan is speaking about are not on our side of the, so understand what I'm saying. I'll say it again. Our side of the district has 34 of the shelters. Those other 4 shelters are not in our district, so you're aware of that.
But there's still 34 shelters.
In Astoria, Long Island City.
Yeah, which is a sizable amount. Okay.
Yeah, it's the highest in the city. So I just want to
No,
clarify.
Jamaica is, Madam Councilwoman, Jamaica's higher than us.
No, I have
Oh,
38
Von Reddick.
shelters. And out of the councilmatic districts, we have the highest amount.
Oh,
my
we don't go
councilmatic
by,
district-
yeah.
Right, you're
Sorry,
talking about the
ma'am.
community board districts. So I just
Right.
want to clarify that difference. But
Sorry, ma'am.
Florence is right. Florence is right because I cover both Community Board 1 and Community Board 2. And on Community Board 1, we have 34 total shelters, which is more than plenty, where there are other community boards in our borough alone that do not have many to share. So we can
Other
share
citywide, ma'am.
Yeah.
We
Can I
added
make
they're
one-
all in walking distance of Queensbridge houses, Ravenswood houses, Astoria houses. They're all in walking distance of this
Plaza, yeah.
proximity.
Can I make one last comment? I have to jump off to another meeting that's actually been going on for half
Okay.
an hour.
So I will say thank you to everyone that joined us. And to BRC, to Matt and to Jamar, and I think Sam is here. Thank you for coming. And again, we're not punishing the messenger, but you've heard what everyone has had a chance to say. And as much as we need more housing. And you know that. So I'm gonna end the meeting now or adjourn the meeting.
Chair Clint
at-
Public Member Clint wanted to say something before you end the meeting.
Okay, where is he? I don't see Clint.
I don't know if he closed down because he asked and you might not have heard him.
No, I didn't. I'm really sorry about that.
I don't think you
I will-
heard him.
I'm sorry.
think
I
people
will reach
are
out to
blocked.
Clint separately and see if we can add whatever he wanted to say to Tuesday. But
Thank you.
there'll be more at the full board meeting on Tuesday, which is at Astoria World Manor and live streaming on YouTube. And then if you have any additional questions, please reach out to Florence at the board office and then expect more feedback from the board and obviously Councilmember Juan and Queensbridge Houses Tenants Association and potentially others. So thank you all for coming.
You all have a good night, everybody.
Thank you
Have
all
a
for
good
your
night.
time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.